We are going to listen to Dr. Nathan Pritts today. He is an award-winning educator, course developer, and faculty mentor with a strong focus on innovation and practical applications. He brings expertise in writing, business communication, advertising, marketing, and online user experience to the general education classroom to maximize student learning and heighten engagement, infusing curriculum with foundational outcomes bolstered by clear ties to a student's academic and career path, which is so important. Professor and program chair of first-year writing at the University of Arizona Global Campus, Dr. Pritts is also the author or co-author of 12 books, including Decoherence with the Indiana University Press, Film for Watching to See, Research and Writing, 2nd edition, and Essentials at Academic Writing, 4th edition. He also served as editor and wrote the introduction for Living Online, the Digital Fluency Handbook. Please welcome Dr. Nathan Pritts as he shares his thoughts on how to thrive online, strategic actions that inspire students.
Thank you, Connie. Thanks, everybody, for making the time to come here today. Let me just get my PowerPoint up. There. Hopefully you can see that. I will probably not be able to see the chat too clearly during this, but I will go back through and we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. But I'm interested why you chose this presentation to come to today. Is it the word thrive? I feel like the word thrive is a good word, or is it the fact that I talked about culture of care in the description? This is going to be sort of the anti-culture of care presentation, and I'll explain as I keep working through here. Actually, that's sort of hyperbole. Culture of care provides an essential roadmap for the demeanor we bring into our engagements with students in the classroom. But it is only a baseline, something we need to embrace in our ethos, even as we move beyond it in our active practice in the classroom. And we can move past this by rediscovering the core of skills and knowledge at the center of our disciplines. We encourage our students to use the assignments and activities in our courses as launching points for deeper vectors of creative thought. So why shouldn't we expect any less of ourselves? Rather than rehashing the guidelines or fitting neatly into the requirements, the more compelling question that should drive us is, after culture of care, what next? Beyond compassion and empathy as a mindful center to our practice, let's seek after a fluent and energetic intellectual curiosity. I want to examine how to turn the classroom into a more dynamic space, one that encourages effort, that embraces a spirit of exploration, all while forging deeper connections. Separate from content, apart from activities, we'll identify some steps that will help inspire students to strive, and it's only when you strive that you can start to thrive. There's me, there's a little bit about what I do. That's Connie already read that. But I'll just clarify, if you don't know me, and there's a lot of friends in the room, thank you for attending. If you don't know me, I teach primarily first-year classes here at the University of Arizona Global Campus. I'm the program chair for our first-year English classes. That's classes like English 121, which is our first composition class, English 122, which is our second composition class. I say all that only to give you a little bit of background about where I'm coming from. I deal with not only primarily first-year students, but first-year students who are within those first 4 or 5 classes ever at our university. I think this informs a lot about how I do what I do and a little bit about what I'm going to talk about today. One of the signature hallmarks of culture of care, as we've defined it, is something I think I could best describe as grace. We unfailingly assume good intent on the part of our students, and we offer the biggest amount of empathy. We extend deadlines, and we reach out to students proactively, retroactively, actively, It's an ethos that puts caring instruction at the center of all we do. And it's so baked into how we do that, that it's just something we kind of take for granted. But maybe we can center ourselves by reading this description. This is from the Faculty Affairs website. So this is sort of the university description about what the culture of care actually is. Apart from the requirements, I find reading the ethos kind of instructive. That second paragraph there that's on your screen. Caring instruction is defined as the practice of being engaged in students' learning, responsive to student communication, inclusive of student differences, and supportive of student needs. I mean, you can read that yourself, and listen, nobody's going to argue with that. That's all good stuff. But I feel as if there have been some unintended consequences of this. I oversee an associate faculty pool that tops 100 different associate faculty, and I haven't been collecting discrete data on this, but I can report anecdotally what they've shared with me, what I've seen in my own classes, what I've heard scuttlebutt in the hallways talking to all of my friends and colleagues here at UAGC. So perhaps we can imagine that what I talk about next is indicative of some underlying trends. Some faculty, not all, report to me that they feel restricted by what they see as a lack of accountability that is baked into how culture of care works. Admittedly, my faculty are first-year faculty. We don't often see the payoff down the line, but in our snapshots, our glimpse into student behavior, faculty can sometimes feel as if caring might result in an overall lowering of the bar. We can counterpoint and contradict that, sure. We know that culture of care works for our students, but I also know that some of the most important learning experiences in my life, inside and outside the classroom, involved struggle, feeling uncomfortable. And frankly, those struggles sometimes involved failure, catastrophic, heartrending failure, big failure. If I can play devil's advocate for a second here, does culture of care wrap our students so serenely in bubble wrap that they simply roll through degree progression, frictionless and content? I'm not suggesting that we do away with culture of care, but I do think we need to look critically at what culture of care does well, think expansively about what it does not do, and then focus on expanding our interventions within it. If we're to feel empowered to push our students, to give them a little tough love at times, we need to develop a framework that empowers faculty to feel supported in doing that. So yes, we offer extensions and we don't apply late penalties, but maybe sometimes it's worth telling the student that we are doing that instead of just invisibly accepting everything for full credit all the time. Maybe it's worth having a conversation about why we are doing it. Can we hold our students accountable within the framework of culture of care? Sure, we can. And I think there are a couple of different ways forward for us to do that. As I said, we can acknowledge the care that we are extending, making the invisible visible. You don't just have to simply accept late work and grade everything simply and cleanly. You can email with your students, discuss with them what you are doing. I'm not saying to make people feel bad about what's happening, and I'm not saying to put people on the spot, but I do think acknowledging the fact that a student has turned something in late is an acceptable avenue within culture of care. It allows them to understand that you are extending care. After that, what we can do is we can share our own experiences with struggle. We've all been through something. Even if the something isn't the same, the experience of struggle is universal, and it is often instructive. So when we're sharing of ourselves in our classrooms, maybe we're talking about how we earned our degrees or where we come from as teachers, what our lives have been like, maybe we should emphasize some of the struggles that we've gone through. Boy, the word struggle looks really weird, doesn't it? I keep staring at that and thinking I typed it wrong. Wouldn't that be a good struggle to have failed at typing a word in my PowerPoint presentation. Even though we might not have been through the same things as our students, maybe even if we're not going through the exact same thing in the exact same moment, I do think that the experience of struggle is universal. Discussing those challenges, hazards, roadblocks with our students in the classroom can give us that edge that helps students to understand that struggle is okay. Obstacles are okay. We can admit those and discuss them. And we do that through engaging. Maybe we're reflecting on a discussion board. Maybe we're reflecting simply in a one-to-one email with students. Maybe it's part of the instructor guidance that we develop and put into our classes. But having an open and frank conversation about these types of struggles, setbacks, difficulties, puts us in a position where we can help students to understand that struggle, overcoming, is part of what higher education instills in us. It's not all about outcomes. There's also that discipline, and having that as part of the conversation helps us move forward. Because I think meaningful struggle is the key to durable learning. I know the intellectual challenges I've had to overcome define me even more than those things which came easily to me. Perhaps talking more about this struggle, sharing that in the classroom in the ways I've discussed, can be one way to reintroduce some texture or friction into the online learning experience. We live in an amazing digital age, and here, UAGC, we're at the forefront of it. There have been presentations even today about all the robust sets of data we can pull. We've got these amazing platforms that deliver our learning experiences and assignments, and everything is plugged into rubrics that are calibrated to outcomes. We can track clicks, we can track opens, we can measure. But what we're measuring is performance, specific achievement on a discrete activity. All of this taken together gives us a grade, and the grade is meant to give us a fairly accurate picture of the student. But does it? Is it a durable and descriptive portrait, or merely a snapshot? Students can worry so much about points that they risk missing the larger point of the class or of their education. I'm not advocating that we do away with grades or even radically changing how we grade, but I suspect all of us can think back to memorable and defining educational experiences that had nothing to do with grades. In our forward rush to create momentum and narrative urgency in the class, we may be placing too much emphasis on gradable moments without giving any room for unscripted moments, for exploration. There are elements, outcomes, concepts in every course that track performance on CLO2, whatever that is. But are there moments that engender and harness intellectual curiosity? What I'm describing is a sense of empowerment and exploration that we can embed in the teaching of our courses, a sense that the student is in charge of their own learning and that learning can take them anywhere, not just to complete a discussion post by Thursday night in order to earn 5 points, which is 5% of the total that they're trying to earn on their way to an A or an A- or a B+. Some of the ways we can encourage exploration in our classroom have to do with the way the classes are designed, but some of the things that we can try are just things that we can lay into the class as teachers, separate from the design, so part of the instruction. I think one of the ways we can do that is by embedding options into the class. I think we can spark curiosity by designing next level learning into the course. Maybe these are optional activities. Maybe these are activities without a set rubric. Maybe these are different stretch goals via self-paced modules that we develop and put into the class. Not every student will take advantage of all of these things, but giving them options will foreground the fact that your individual course is more than a 6 CLO curriculum. It's more than 4 different activities over the course of each week for 5 weeks long. It'll help them to understand that there is a bigger picture that they can choose to explore. We can just lay it out. We can't necessarily, in what I'm discussing here, we can't control what they may or may not take advantage of, but we can put it there for them to do that. Another thing we can do, and I think this is more about how we instruct the class, is to make sure that we're always asking questions. We can probe and pierce using dialogic questions on the discussion board, in emails, even throughout our guidance, our announcements, finding ways to engage that stretch goal through a dialogic question. One of the things I tell my faculty is never leave a conversation with a student without asking a question. Maybe that's the discussion board. Maybe that's an email they send you. I think there's always an opportunity to tap into students' innate drives by asking them these questions. Again, they'll understand that even simple aspects of course curriculum are broader, bigger, worthy of explorative study if we continue to push them by asking questions. And I think another thing that we can do, again, in the teaching of the class, is to go off trail, to consistently demonstrate how the learning in your course is broadly applicable in a wider range of fields. I know that we're examining our courses. We've always done a good job in our courses of making sure that we're using examples, models, activities that model real life. Our ABOR requirements that we're looking at and starting to model in our classes require this, that we show how things pay off in the classroom. But I think we need to consistently do that in every opportunity. Again, in the instructional guidance we list in, maybe in different resources we point students to on the discussion board, showing students consistently how much bigger the world is than the 5 weeks we've been given is one of the keys to helping them explore and see something beyond the grade that they're trying to earn for the class that they want to complete that will put them closer to a degree. Education is bigger than that, and we can signal that over and over again in our classes. Probably some of you are nodding that actually, yes, your courses do all these things. You do all these things. And that's because we're awesome. We're all really great teachers here. We've got great course design. We all do really great work. We know here in this room that grades don't really matter. We know that learning isn't just taking a list to the grocery store and pulling things off the shelf. We know that you need to push. You need to explore. We need to extemporaneous. We need to struggle. We need to fail. The mission is to foreground this in our courses, in our teaching. Whether we're designing the class or whether we're just showing up on day one to teach it, we need to lead these conversations for our students. We need to remind them that, yeah, grades are important. I want you to complete this assignment on time, but that they don't define you. All the things I'm talking about really boil down to mindset, and they're best layered on top of the culture of care baseline. What I'm trying to do is offer the perspective that an additional menu of strategies can optimize the gains we've made through culture of care. We talk a lot about wanting students to learn, but learning is a byproduct of creating an environment that inspires growth. In the classroom, in your class, you can foster an understanding and application, not just of an idea or a piece of content, but of ideas and knowledge, real wisdom that can help students not just learn, but thrive. See how I work that in there? Thrive. Thank you very much for listening. We've got some time now, I believe, for any questions. I'm going to stop sharing so that I can see the chat, just in case there's anything that I need to respond to. But thank you all for coming, and feel free to ask anything or discuss anything. I'm happy to talk more.
Yeah, if you have any questions, this was fantastic. How do we impress upon our associate faculty, and you have over 100, I'm pretty close to 73 right now, that there is a purpose to what they're doing, because they're walking into the classroom to provide 6 discussion posts, grade by Thursday, grade by Sunday. How do we shift that mindset to a purpose and help our associate faculty thrive so that they can interact with our students?
I don't pretend to have all the answers, but I do think that it's a preponderance of activities in the classroom. I mean, some students don't know my name, right? That's just a reality of any class anywhere. But some students hang on every word I type in the classroom. They see every link I post. They read everything I write to anybody. I think we just need to make sure that we're bringing this mindset of exploration, this mindset of overcoming obstacles. I think making sure that that's baked into how we talk with our students, how we talk in the classroom. I think that's the key. I mean, I feel like one of the things that led me to think about this is, I'd have associate faculty coming to me and they were feeling really constricted by culture of care. They weren't seeing the caring. Allie Reef made a good comment in the chat. Our students are struggling in their daily lives all the time. And so culture of care is helping us extend that empathy, extend that grace. But does that mean that we never say boo to them? Does that mean that we give them 100% on every activity? Does that mean that they're always just rubber stamped through? And I think that's the really interesting, difficult spot to find on the knife's edge. How do we adhere to culture of care while still being a teacher that can display tough love, can push students? And again, I'm not saying that I have the answers. I do think that it is more than one thing. It's more than course design. It's more than instruction. It's more than an announcement that you post on the 3rd Wednesday of your class. I think it's something that we have to all kind of consider separately, realize we have the support for, and push forward and try to just embed into our discussions in the classroom.
Dr. Pritts, this is Dr. Ardolino. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really resonate with what you've said in your presentation, and I kind of want to go back to the accountability of the university, because are they just trying to get, meet a quota of number of graduating students? I'm in the 3rd year. I've got some students who I'm their last class and they still can't write. And so I understand where there are extenuating circumstances. I mean, we all lived through them when we were doing our academic journey. I mean, and so when that professor gave us a break, gosh, we were so thankful. But now I get, I go into Signals and I see, well, this student was late for 40% of their work the previous class, or, with statistics like that, why aren't we at a university level addressing these students? Why are we giving them full tuition grants without any accountability or responsibility of making the grade? There's one thing to be a part of cultural care, meaning yeah, if a student's having difficulty, let's get right there and through a whole assignment many times, but not just pass them through. I mean, when I have a student that every word in his paragraph, none of it is capitalized, including the word I, and he's a 4th year student, there's a problem. So I think the distinction of culture of care and caring is good, but we also need to put our bar back up on the level of responsibility on the student for earning, and that key word is earning their grade, and walking out of University of Arizona with a degree that means something, not just a piece of paper.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Ardolino, you make a good point. Let me tell you, I mean, I don't have answers. I don't think anyone here feels, I certainly don't feel as if culture of care is asking me to pass students who don't have the skills. And I certainly don't feel as if I'm being asked to lower the bar. But having said that, I do feel as if it can be difficult to find out how to point out that bar and keep students working toward it. I mean, again, I sort of like teasingly set this up as the anti-culture of care moment. And that's not at all what I'm intending. I feel like it's an important initiative and something that I think really distinguishes who we are as a university. But of course, there are challenges and there are problems to that. And that's one of the things I want to have a conversation about, is seeing how we can still do what we need to do in the classroom with and for our students while still maintaining that ethos. But the other thing I would say is, if you've got students, who are in their second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth year here at the University of Arizona Global Campus, and they can't write, email me, because that's my job. I need to make sure these students, my curriculum, my teachers are doing a better job with them. So send them to me. I'll work with them.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, because I just think that, I see these students with full tuition grants, and they're the ones not turning in their work, and I'm, sending them messages saying, hey, how can I help and everything. And it's almost, I don't know if they're a student with a learning difference, then let's put them on accommodations and tell me as a professor, hey, this student is challenged with their learning. I can work with that. But when I get a student who supposedly is a third-year student and they're still not doing their work and they're not responding and so forth, or again, the writing issue, I want to put it back to our counselors. Who are the people registering these students, and are they looking at their progress? Are they looking at the fact that they can't write? That's where, are they looking at the fact that 40% of their work was late last term? So wait a minute, before we register them for the next class, make sure they're not just getting passed through the system. I think it goes back to the university. Sorry.
Dr. Pritts, we are running close on time here, and I think we all feel a piece of Dr. Ardolino's misery. However, we all sort of agree that this did not lower the bar in terms of grading the student and holding them accountable for their work. I've never heard that. It's changed the due dates on work, but it certainly didn't tell you couldn't grade them for poor work. Right. So, you might want to reach out to your program chair or your academic dean and carry on the conversation so you have a better comfort level with what you're experiencing.
Right. I think it has to do with the rubrics. If the rubric doesn't hold them accountable, none of my rubrics for the discussions, none of them allow you say, hey, the student was on time for their post.
Yeah, some of these
so
questions.
There's no way to mark them down for being late. Yeah.
Some of these questions run much deeper than just what we can do as teachers, and making sure that we do what we can is really all we can control. If we're not in charge of course design, if we're not in charge of the university, then we're making a choice to be here to do our best for students. And I think there are ways that we can do that. And this is just kind of a way to start a conversation about that.
Okay, Dr. Pritts, real quick, Elena has a question.
I see that.
Actually, I just sort of had a comment to what Dr. Ardolino was talking about, and I think there's a different focus with adult students in terms of what we're teaching them in the classroom. Like, really, our focus for them is on the content rather than some of these extra skills like meeting deadlines, things like that. Like, how many of us have had in our real life, in our job, had to ask for grace on a deadline, or weren't able to sort of get the work done on time and sort of had to do that? And so I think, like, changing our focus and looking at culture of care, like, how can we help students successfully learn the content that they need to do? Of course, we do have a time frame, but is what we're teaching them to meet deadlines, or is what we're teaching them the learning outcomes in the classroom? And the deadlines sort of fit in with that, but our focus is really on the content. Like, and I think that's where, like, there can be some disconnect in terms of how culture of care impacts our teaching in the classroom.
Right, that's great, Elena. Thank you. Well, I have posted the survey link in the chat. so that you can nominate TLC presentations for conference awards and share your feedback on your conference experience. We encourage you to attend as many sessions as you possibly can and interact, because all of them are similar to this, and you're going to learn some really great things over the next 2 days. Enjoy the rest of your TLC. And Dr. Pritts, thank you so much for providing this information and stirring this conversation, and to the audience for your participation in today's session. Thank you, and I hope I see you in another room.